Good morning, everyone. I want to first of all thank everybody who is involved in the Palm Sunday pageant. And I want to particularly lift up this morning Lauren and Sarah and Scott for all of their wonderful and hard work over the course of the last month, which has not only kept our church going, but has actually progressed our church in many, many ways. I also want to thank you for all of your prayers and all of the ways that you're continuing to serve, even though we cannot gather together. And I ask, please, for your continued prayers for our church and for our nation, especially, of course, for the sick and their families. I want to ask you to go back with me today to the time when Jesus set his face to Jerusalem, right after the transfiguration and the glory of Jesus radiating who he truly was to the disciples. He set his face to Jerusalem, and the disciples went with him. And I want you to imagine being a disciple with Jesus on that journey to Jerusalem. In fact, we have been on just such a sort of journey the last few weeks in our nation. So let's set our faces. Let's turn our imaginations to that journey to Jerusalem. We first off remember Jesus encountering sickness after sickness in mind, body, and spirit wherever he walked. And he healed many, perhaps most, of those who were suffering. But there are also times where he didn't heal or he couldn't heal. And that was a great, great mystery, a source of confusion, perhaps, to the disciples, and yet they continued to believe him and trust in him and follow him because they had experienced his goodness and his power and his wisdom. They had seen what he was capable of doing. They had heard his wonderful and amazing teachings, and so they persevered with him. Now with the disciples, we are nearing Jerusalem. And we cannot wait for him to finish the work that he has started with us and in us. We hear the murmurings of the crowds on the outskirts of Jerusalem, and we cannot wait to join them in singing and giving all of our glory, laud, and honor to the King. But in the back of our minds, we remember his saying something about a cross and his being rejected and suffering. And he even alluded to how we would forsake him and he would have to bear the cross alone. One of the hardest parts of this crisis has been thinking about those who are having to spend their last days or weeks here on earth without their loved ones around them. Why, O Lord, have you forsaken them? I think our Father would respond, there is great evil in this world, and I'm always doing everything in my power to contain it, but sometimes it spills out. I picture Jesus adding in, remember me bearing the cross and wondering why my Father had forsaken me. That means that I am with those who are dying in the hospitals without their loved ones. And I'm going to show myself to them, just as I showed myself to doubting Thomas. And they will come to know and come to believe everything that they need to know and believe, that I am, and that life and love and peace and joy are before them. God is also growing us in compassion and care, and we see that in our nation these days as we return to the central things that matter and unite us. Mutual care and concern and support regarding health and love and peace. So when this particular cross is passed, Will you keep this focus on what really matters and what unites us? And more than this, will you join the resurrection ahead? Will you join your fellow disciples in fellowship and worship and discipleship and service? Will you raise up our church, our community, our nation, and our world? May it be so, through the one who can do far more abundantly in us, especially in these times, than all we can ask or imagine. To God be glory in the church and in Christ Jesus, now and forevermore. And God's people say,